title of this message today is Grand Gestures in Hidden Places. Grand Gestures in Hidden Places. It's still the month of love. Valentine's, Galentine's, all kinds of times, real fresh right now. Everybody's talking about, quote unquote, love. But as you know, as a church, what we are trying to do, what we are trying to achieve is to get us to a place of maturity in God. Like, it's not about these dates on the calendar, these things that somehow some community or some society kind of made up, and then we're all like, day comes and we're all like scurrying around and stuff. It's not about that stuff. Like, for us as believers, yeah, it's nice to do those cute things and stuff like that, but there's deeper knowledge, deeper maturity that God has in store for all of us. We have to get to a point of maturity, and that's what today is all about, like grand gestures in hidden places. One of the things that make, love so interesting, or relationships or marriage and all that stuff, is when we hear all these amazing stories of some flight. When we watch romantic movies, we watch flights across the country to go see somebody, or gifts, or like videos that go viral of like proposal, like things like that. Like it's cute and stuff, but it's like, there's something that could be a little off about that if we're not careful. I got something for you. I'd be like, hit him. Let's take a look at one of these things. Stephen, do we have sound on this? All right, cool. Let's take a look. Grand gestures in hidden places. If you're unavailable, all right, cool. I'll describe it to you. I'll describe it to you, right? So, this, it was just a proposal, right? One of those... we got something. We got something. That one right there. I that might have been I don't know if that was a fail or if that was actually a moment. All right. No, nada. All right. We'll describe it. So I think this is the one where like some guy is like proposing, and it's a big deal. Like I sent a few. I think the one that was eventually picked was somebody like was like arranged a dinner, and like they had like people dancing around. It's like a nice proposal moment. And it was a basketball game or something like that, and there was like a flash mob, right, proposal, and it was really cool. And it was like Bruno Mars song. What's the name of the song? I think I want to. Yeah, that one, right? So it was a nice moment. It was a nice moment. We'll find it. We'll see if we can find it, and if not, no worries. But it was just an example of like this grand gesture where everyone was there. It has all these thousands and thousands of views, and it's like, yeah, that's a moment that everyone sees. And that's awesome. And at some point, what happens to us is that love no longer becomes what we do out of inspiration of the Holy Spirit. It becomes something that stops being about the recipient and it starts being more about the giver. That's what happens to us. See, when we focus on all these external moments, when we focus on all these dates on the calendar, when we focus on all these grand events, we're planning a proposal, we're trying to do something for our boo or whatever, or maybe we're expecting it. It becomes about the giver, not about the receiver. It becomes not about the moment. It becomes less about having a shared moment of connection and more about me, who is the giver. That's what this kind of dates kind of do to us if we're not careful. I mean, think about it, right? Suddenly, it starts to look like we ourselves are seeking the benefit of giving the affection as opposed to giving it. In fact, what we do is we start to realize that it is our self-seeking that sometimes drive our acts of love. We get to a point where we, and this is not just about romantic love. I'm talking about acts of love, acts of being there for people, acts of really, really serving others. We get to a point where if we're not careful, it becomes about us. That act, we do it when it serves our purpose. It becomes less about the receiver, more about the giver. It becomes more about who saw it and less about who I did it for. It becomes less about the impact it made in somebody's life and how much it cost me. See, this is a very, very blurry line. At that point, it's no longer this pure act of love. There's something else there that makes it tainted almost. But there's a part, don't get me wrong, there is a part of that equation that is okay. The part about showing love and giving to others and being of service to others, there's a part of that is okay when it serves us. And I'll give you the healthy version of that. The healthy version of that is the part that makes it possible for us to receive peace from God because we gave to somebody. See, that's kind of self-serving, but in a healthy way. Because when you give to others, when you show love to others, when you offer yourself, it does do you good. It's not only the person who received that feels great about it. You walk away feeling good about yourself. And that's okay. That's what's supposed to happen. There's a part, another healthy version is when you do things, when you were inspired to do something nice for others, but then you share it with the community or as a testimony that in a way that it inspires other people to do the same thing for other people. See, that's good. That's good. There's a version of this where you do something and it lifts your spirit up. I've told you sometimes I find myself when I'm feeling very low, one of the ways that I have found to be super effective is that I try to lift somebody else up. When I feel like I need prayers the most, I find somebody to pray for. When I feel like I need to feel love the most, I find somebody to love. See, in that equation, right, that's a healthy version of what we call this self-serving love. That's not the part I'm talking about that gets blurry, that gets really, really murky. I'm talking about when the lines start to get really blurry is when we love, but it's always so calculated. We're so calculated in showing love that we don't do it. We don't come out of our shell unless it has a direct correlation with something that serves us. It's like we don't love unless we can calculate the return on investment. You ever had that kind of relationship before? Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's good, girl. You keep it that way. That's right. Right? It's interesting when we get into those murky waters, our love, our display of love, our ability to give of ourselves, it becomes so calculated. That's the part that's not very healthy. That's what Jesus was talking about in Matthew chapter 6, verse 1 to 4. Take a look. It says, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets as hypocrites do in the synagogue and in the streets to be honored by others." In other words, don't do it for the sole purpose of how other people are going to see how wonderful you are. You announce it with trumpets just to draw attention. Don't do it to draw attention to yourself. It says, "Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Again, that's not to say that you can't share your good deeds. That's not what it's talking about here. This is not to say that when you're nice, when you do something nice for you, that you can't talk about it. No. Don't get me wrong. It's when you do that stuff out of the wrong mindset, where you are so calculated about it that you wouldn't have done that if the attention wasn't going to be on you. Or you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't be sharing if it would not only be as a benefit for you. And I know right now there's what you're most of us are doing what we call separation. You're like, I wouldn't. No, that wouldn't be me. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how much we have a tendency to calculate the return on investment for the good things that we do for others. Because a real grand gesture of love, as your Father in heaven sees this stuff, is not the things that get 1 million views on YouTube. A real gesture of love, as God sees this stuff, is not the stuff that people around you are going to be talking about, or it's all going to be all over the gram. I mean, it's okay if it's on the gram, but I mean, just watch your heart. Because you see, people may look on the outside, but God sees your inside. God sees your heart. God sees your heart. That's why the story of the Good Samaritan is so compelling. Because, you see, when we have a good relationship with God, it's not the big things we do for God on the pulpit, in our roles in church. It's not the good things we do for our family, for our spouses, for our loved ones. Sometimes God just is the little things that count. That story of the Samaritan, that's where we're going to go today. And I'm going to show you some things that I saw that I think are like almost mind-blowing. In fact, one of them I didn't understand. I've been reading this story for years. I never understood it the way I understood it preparing for this. Here we go. Let's take a look at Luke chapter 10, verse 25 to 37. This is a story. It's a somewhat familiar story for most of us. It's a story about the Good Samaritan. Here we go. On one occasion, an expert of the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied. How do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You've answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself. See where this is going now? See, already we're seeing this stuff. He asked this question not to really learn anything, but already we can tell that he was asking this question just to make himself look good. Just to make himself feel justified, like he knew the law, he knew the Bible, he knew the scriptures. Watch what goes on, okay? But he answered to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. I almost said Mexico. Maybe I need to talk to my wife and make it a trip to Mexico. Yeah. Oh, and my daughter says Mexico belongs to her. Another conversation, baby. We'll have that later. When he was attacked by robbers. So a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed on by the other side. A priest does this. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, he passed on the other side. Pause. A priest in that moment is supposed to be the person that you would think would do this. A priest is sort of like a head in the church, so to speak. A Levite is someone who also works in a senior staff in the church. Somebody who in those days they did all the operational things in the church, so to speak. And they passed by the other side. Verse 33, it says, but a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was. And when he saw him, he took pity on him. Everyone say he took pity. One more time, he took pity. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine. There isn't enough time to break down the implications of pouring oil and wine. Oil in the Bible usually connotes anointing, usually connotes the presence of God. it connotes being chosen. When David was anointed king, he was anointed with oil, right? You have all these stories in the Bible when someone was anointed. That means that they will have been specially selected, intentionally selected. No one is anointed by just random, the oil just kind of spilled on your head. Like, that's not how this stuff. And when someone is anointed, they are selected out of all the possibilities. They were chosen. In other words, what this implies to me spiritually is that this Samaritan poured oil. It was an intentionality towards helping this person. It wasn't just convenient. It was intentional. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day, he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. He said, "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have." In other words, not just am I going to spend what I have, but in case there's more, I am willing. See, that kind of love is a kind of love that is not based on a calculator. That kind of love is not based on there is a limit to withdrawals. This kind of love is whatever it takes for you to be okay. Whatever it takes for me to be there for you, I am willing to do more than I'm even able to do right now. I might not be able to do everything for you right now, but I want you to know that there is a commitment to you. And whatever it's going to take, even though I don't have it, I'm going to go look for that grace. I'm going to go look for more in order for me to be there for you. I wonder, all our relationships, whether romantic or platonic, friendships or I wonder if this is how we handle that. So I wonder what would happen. I wonder how much healthier we would be. Jesus said, "Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell in the hands of the robbers?" The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." Now here's the interesting part of this, and this is not going to be a drawn out sermon per se, but it's just interesting, right? The priest and the Levite were the 2 people who were most likely, supposedly most likely, right, to stop. Most likely. I mean, someone is on the road, someone who has been robbed and beaten half to death. The priest walks by, the Levite walks by. And the one who was actually supposed to be the least likely is the one who stops. Let me add some context for us. You see, the Samaritans and the Jewish folks in the day did not get along. In fact, if you were from a Jewish neighborhood and you saw someone from Samaria come in, you would cross the road. They didn't see eye to eye. Culturally, we're talking thousands of years in history. They didn't see eye to eye. So for a Samaritan to come out of that comfort zone of, I guess I have a legitimate reason. That tells you how much, when we talk about least likely, that's truly least likely person to stop. Let me ask you a question. Are you a loving person only when it serves you well? Or can you do it also in hidden places? Are you a loving person when no one is there? When there is no apparent reward? Remember that the Samaritan took him to the inn. The Bible says that the man was half dead. In other words, there wasn't time for a huge hug and thank you. There wasn't oh my goodness, you are such a lifesaver. There was no the way I'm looking at this man, picturing this man, he could barely respond. He was unresponsive. Can you love when people are being unresponsive? It's tough, I know. Because that's what happened here. That's the deeper thing we're talking about. This is not about romance and cute things on February 4th. This is about like this is what love really is. That's the Samaritan that was least likely to stop helping somebody when they don't have the ability to respond back. And then making a commitment that if you need more, I'm there. Now, by human standards, this is tough. I mean, can I keep it real? Can I be 100% real? This is tough. This is tough. It's hard to do. Because the real gestures of love, the real, what God really is looking for are those hidden camera moments. Those hidden moments when you're the least likely person, when love is coming from the least likely places, when you can't get a response back, how about this? When the person you are loving is not in a position to love you back. When no praise is coming to you, there's no trophies, there's no Calvary, there's no Instagram post, there's no YouTube video, there is nothing. There's nothing. It's a challenge. Ask the folks who are married in the room, and they'll tell you marriage can come with its moments. It can come with its moments. If you're in a relationship, you know this as well. It can come with its moments. If you're not in a relationship, you got plenty family enough that this is for. Oh yeah, every one of us can relate. It's like it sounds so simple, but it's so hard to do. So hard to do. Let me ask you another question, and this is the anchoring question before we get into our takeaways. An anchoring question for this: what have you done lately at a personal cost that made a difference for someone, that impressed God, but is not public information? I mean, there are key parts of this statement, right? So what have you done lately? First one, at a personal cost. Because some of us are nice when it costs us nothing. What have you done at a personal cost that made a difference? Because sometimes we do things at a personal cost that doesn't do jack squat. Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a real difference. Doesn't make a real difference. Right? At a personal cost, made a difference for someone that impressed God. In fact, that impressed God is supposed to be underlined as well. Impressed God. Impressed God. Because you can do something that costs you. It was a big personal sacrifice. It made a difference for someone, truly, but it didn't impress God. It didn't impress God because that heart was not in the right place. Maybe you did it for the attention. Yeah, sure, it came at a personal cost. Yeah, sure, it made a difference. Didn't impress God. God was like, you calculated this moment oh so well. This was a calculated act of quote unquote sacrifice. The ROI is what got you to do this one. Have you done something lately at a personal cost that made a difference for someone, that impressed God, but is not public information? For most of us, we can hit at least 2, maybe 3 of these. But to hit all 4, that's what's tough. Because you can do something at a high personal cost, but it's online, and maybe it made a difference, but it didn't impress God. Or maybe it did not make a difference, and it is not public information, but high cost. There's a way that we can hit all these things, but to have all 4 where it's not about who sees it, it's not about the public information, it's not about what kind of return on investment, it's just that it impressed God, it came at a high cost, it made a difference in someone's life, and no one's talking about it online. Can you think of those moments? And if you can't, that's a challenge. That's something worthy where we should be able to say, you know what? I want to elevate myself to that level. I want to reach for that. Or are you the person who is being nice, low cost, kind of makes a difference? It is public information. Everybody, don't you love people who, like, the moment they help you out, yo, everybody's gonna know. The moment they do something nice for you, you're not gonna hear the end of that forever. It's like, yeah, thanks for the help, but wish you hadn't. For you and I, the standard, and I know you may not be here right now. I'm not here right now myself fully. It's something ahead of me that I'm like, okay, you know what, God, work on me to help me get there, to be comfortable, to be that Samaritan. Now, here are 3 main takeaways from today that I want you, like if you miss everything else, I mean, the Samaritan story was nice and stuff. These are 3 things that you got to remember as we bring this down. Number 1, Samaritan love is giving love to someone even when you are the person least expected to do so. That means loving people outside your culture. That means loving people outside of your comfort zone. That means loving people who are not like you, who don't come from where you're from, who don't like the things you like. People who would not even consider you as the first place. I bet you there are people that you may have wanted to help before, but you're thinking, I don't even know if they would want to receive my help. Like, you're legit in that situation, the Samaritan, that is the least likely person. The least likely person that they would expect help to come from. And sometimes we hold back because we don't want to offer our help and then be turned down. Sometimes it's even as simple as wanting to reach out to somebody to help them, but you're thinking, no, they're who am I to help that person? They're even doing better off than me. You have no idea. You have no idea. Call them to have a good week. They got everything going on for them. They should be calling me to have a good week. Step up and be that Samaritan even when you are the least likely person, the least expected person to do so. There's scripture that tells us that we should not despise our youth. And this is not even about youth specifically. For me, it's even more, don't despise yourself. Don't talk yourself down. When it comes to the kind of impact that you could have on somebody else, you have no idea. Sometimes a text message, sometimes just the simplest things you do just makes a difference. You have no idea what people are going through. So that means when you're that Samaritan and you're loving in the way that Samaritan did, you're loving people outside of your comfort zone. How many people have you really made a difference for who don't look like you, who don't think like you, who don't dress like you, who don't speak the same language, people who are not in the same economic class? When was the last time you really touched somebody that was not in your comfort zone? I mean, at Ignite, we're talking about learning every week we come, because the idea is that we elevate our souls, we elevate our spirit to reach higher and higher and higher towards more resemblance like Christ. It doesn't mean we don't come on Sundays to hear things that we already done. We come on Sundays sometimes to hear things that's like, wow, like that's an aspiration that I would like to get to. And for us, it's about being able to have our eyes wide open to see people around us who don't look like you, who don't act like you, who are not from the same country, not from the same background, not like you in any way, and still being able to see their need. Because it is a spiritual gift to be able to see the need somebody has. Number 2, it's related, but it's about stepping up. Even when you're the least person, you're the person least expected to do so. The first one is talking specifically about love. This is about stepping up, period. That means working. The first one is about loving people outside of your comfort zone and outside of your knowledge. This is about stepping up and doing things outside of your comfort zone and outside of your knowledge. Talk about, this is how we grow, people. At work, if you stay stuck doing only the things that you are trained for, if you don't step up for things outside of your knowledge base, if you don't raise your hand to say, I can try to help out with that for things that you're not the expert, you're not trained for, things that are outside of your knowledge base, how are you going to grow? How are you going to grow? Even the things that you don't think you qualify for, stepping up is how you get qualified. You know what's interesting? When we come out of college or whatever, and we're trying to look for a job, we always have that whole catch-22. It's like, well, I just graduated from college, and they're telling me I need experience. How am I going to get experience if no one's giving me a chance? Right? You ever hear that? Right? How am I going to develop experience if no one's giving me a chance? The reality is, after you do that, you keep doing that to yourself. After you go past that first initial opportunity, you keep doing that to yourself because there's opportunities for you, but you don't step up because you're thinking, I don't have any experience. So now you've become that person who is not giving you a chance because you don't have experience, whereas all you need to do is just step up. Just step up. Here's a good place. House church. Because, they got priests. They got Levites. What impact can I have? See how that's applying? Right? They got priests. Sometimes the priests can't do it. They got Levites. Sometimes the Levites can't do it. Sometimes it takes Samaritans who may be looking at themselves and saying, I'm not qualified for this stuff. Sometimes it's the least qualified in their own eyes who God actually needs to make the big difference. So even when it comes to running our community, and I gotta give it up for, we have one of the best things about Ignite is that we just have people who just have love for the community. I mean, this is one issue that God has just been so good to us. People step up. People just, when things happen, people just like, I'll do that. My goodness, without that, this would be 10 times harder to do. So amazing. But that's what that Samaritan love is like. Here is the last one. And this is the one that I did not see for the longest time. Here it is. Because usually when we read that story, we usually focus on being like the Samaritan. But the Lord revealed to me sometimes we are like the person who was beat on the street. We are the one laying on the side of the road, attacked by robbers of our joy, and we need to be ready and able to receive love even in the most unexpected places, or even from the most unexpected places. See, many times when we talk about that story, the narrative is be like the Samaritan. And that's what we usually talk about. But the reality is many times in life, we are like that person beat on the side of the street, in need of help, in need of support, in need of encouragement. And sometimes we don't open our eyes. We don't know how to receive love, to receive help from places that is the least expected. I want to encourage you today that your life will be so much better if you open your mind and open your heart to receive love from unexpected places. And to be comfortable, watch this, to be comfortable receiving love even when you can't pay back. Yeah, because that is tough. It's tough to be the one giving love when you are the least qualified. But let me tell you, it is very hard receiving love when you feel that you can't pay back. When you feel like you are the one that's beat on the side of the road, like that man who was robbed, and the Samaritan comes along, and you're thinking to yourself, no, that's okay, I got a priest. No, that's okay, I got Levites coming. It's okay, I'm good. I don't need help. When in the reality, you and I need to get to the point where we are able to receive help even from places that don't normally show up, from the least expected places. Some of us are going through things right now we don't need to be going through because we don't know how to identify someone who's trying to help us because we're thinking, this person normally wouldn't be able to help me. This kind of person normally doesn't step up for me. Why would I open myself up for that? There is a video, and I don't know if we have this one. It's from The Blind Side. Anyone seen that movie before? Okay. Here we go.
Blind Side is based on the best-selling book by Michael Lewis, and it's the true story of Michael Orr and how the stars aligned to shine so brightly on this kid in the projects.
Big Mike sleeps on my couch from time to time. It's a bad deal, his mom's on that crack pipe. He ain't got nobody else. Just figured maybe might need some players.
Growing up, he had a rough upbringing. He was homeless and in and out of foster homes.
Let somebody else be Christian about this thing.
I can't kick him out on the street like he's some dog.
Michael was alone, and he made it just far enough for the Tuohys to pick him up and see his potential in life.
This kid come from a place where he had no chance. He was given a helping hand, a leg up, and he took total advantage of it.
Who is that, SJ?
Big Mike.
Big Mike, do you have any place to stay tonight? Come on. I gotta hand it to the family. They worked as a team to get him to where he is. He was real quiet, but it wasn't quiet really like a shy quiet. It was a quiet, kind of a sad quiet. Tell me just one thing I should know about you.
I don't like to be called Big Mike.
Okay.
Meeting Leanne for the first time, she was willing to do all kind of things for me. Took me out to eat, took me shopping, things like that, and she just wanted to help me so bad, I guess. She just had such a big heart.
You could see in the details of Michael's life that if they had not taken him out, he wouldn't have gotten out.
If I do run across somebody where I grew up, they were happy for me. Hardly anybody makes it out. I'm the only person I know that made it out.
You'll get there, Michael Orr. You trust me, Michael?
Yes, Miss Sue.
He's one of the most remarkable young men I've ever known. Michael believes that he can do anything. He just has the most wonderful outlook.
I think Michael coming into the Tuohys' life was they thought a goodwill from them to him, but in the end, it was a goodwill from him to them.
To see this happen and to see a kid come out of the situation that he came out of and to the family that he came into and the support and the love that this family gave him and to see where he ended up in the NFL draft and now we're all going to be watching him play football for the Baltimore Ravens. You can't script a story like that to happen any better.
It's crazy. Just to be a first round pick. If you give somebody a chance, there's hope for that person.
Sandra Bullock, The Blind Side, rated PG-13, starts November 20.
If you haven't seen it, it came out a few years ago, go see it. But do we understand what I'm talking about? Like being able to receive love from the most unexpected places. And so there's so many elements of that, like being the one and being comfortable enough to reach out and not say, this person is not going to take my help because they're going to be weirded out by my help. But to push past that, to say, it doesn't matter what they think. Clearly, it's their experiences that made them think that, so I need to push past that to offer my help and my love. But on the flip side, if you're the recipient of that, for you to get to the point where you're like, you know what? I can see that someone's trying to help me and reaching out to me. I'm going to receive that help. I'm going to receive that love and not think too highly of myself. All of us need to get to a point where we can love better with more maturity. And that's why this is all about maturity. I said at the beginning of this sermon, it's not about like how to be cute on Valentine's Day or like how to be like, this is about maturity. Maturity in love. Because if you don't have that kind of heart, the date won't matter. The date won't matter. He was robbed, led for dead. Somebody came. He accepted the love. I don't even know if This Bible doesn't tell us if they are actually ever met, if there was like some party, there's some kind of reunion party and like whatever. None of that stuff. It just happened. And so as we bring this to a close, we have about 3 or 4 prayer points to pray. And I just want you to bow your heads right now. And I want us to pray these prayers because like these are critical. Like imagine if your relationship was managed like this. Imagine if your home, your family operated like this. Imagine if you had that kind of impact or if somebody had that kind of impact on you. The first prayer we're going to pray is that we're going to come against every thief of life, any robber of joy. The person who was robbed and beaten on the side of the road, that is an analogy for life. It's not only about being physically beaten on the side of the road. It's about, like, some of us are struggling in life right now. And you just feel like you're beaten on the side of the road. You're on the sidelines of life. That your life is not moving forward. That you've taken a hit or 2 or 3 and you're just there right now and your life feels like it's just not moving forward. You're going to come against and just pray against any thief of life. Anything that is taking your joy. Lift up your voice and just cry, just ask your Father in heaven that you just come against, that you ask for a defense from heaven against anything in your life right now that is acting like that thief or those thieves that beat that man at the side of the road. Your life may be feeling beaten right now. You may be taking a hit right now. Then you're going to pray. You're going to ask God for the opportunity and the grace to impress God by the meaningful things you do for others in private. Just say, God, just give me the opportunities. Help me to find the opportunities around me as I walk around, as I go to work, as I go to school. Help me to see the opportunities to make a meaningful difference in the lives of people. Give me the grace to do that. Because sometimes we see the opportunities and for whatever reason, we don't have the grace to move forward. That Samaritan was traveling, had a lot of things to do, or had another agenda, but rerouted, changed his course, went to an inn, all that stuff. That's grace. Help me to find these opportunities. The third one we're going to pray is, help me to see all your divine help around me that can come from unexpected places. Sometimes God is sending us all kinds of amazing help, all kinds of amazing people into our lives, and we push them away because we can't see that this is help from God Himself. We can't see that they're God sent. Just ask God, help me to see the help you're sending. All the amazing support systems, all the amazing people. Some of you go to like offices to go apply for something, and for whatever reason, the person you meet that day just smiles at you, helps you with your paperwork. Ask somebody else who was there the last day. It may not have been the same experience. Some of you made it through college because that one professor just had a liking for you. Just had a liking for you. Some of you right now, you have bosses or people around you who just like you. They just have a liking for you. That's amazing. Do you know how many people are going to work and hate everybody they're working with? The last one we're going to pray. Just say, God, give me the courage to be the one. The one. The one that loves like that, the one that steps up. Give me the courage to be the one. To be the one.